Rohan lived a quiet life in a small town. His days were ordinary, filled with work, simple meals, and evenings spent reading or walking through the fields near his home. He had never expected anything unusual to happen to him. Life was predictable, and he liked it that way, though he often felt a small longing for something different, something extraordinary. One morning, a letter arrived for him. The envelope was thick and yellowed at the edges, and it smelled faintly of old paper and dust. Rohan's name was written in careful, elegant handwriting, and there was no return address. Curiosity stirred in him as he carefully opened it. Inside, the letter explained that he had inherited an old mine from a distant relative he had never met. The relative had passed away years ago, and this inheritance had remained hidden until now. The letter described the mine as ancient and mysterious. It was located in a remote desert far from the towns and cities he knew. The letter suggested that the mine held unusual wonders, though it did not explain what those wonders were. It invited him to come and claim what was rightfully his. Rohan's heart began to beat faster. The ordinary life he had always known suddenly felt small compared to the possibilities this inheritance might offer. For several days, Rohan thought about the letter. He wondered what he might find in the desert, and whether the mine was truly special or simply a forgotten place filled with old rocks and tunnels. Finally, his curiosity outweighed his caution. He packed a small bag with clothes, food, water, and a flashlight. He also carried a notebook and a pencil to record anything unusual he might discover. With determination, he set off on the long journey toward the desert. The road stretched for hours across flat lands, hills, and dry plains. As he traveled, Rohan's imagination ran wild. He imagined glittering crystals deep inside the mine, or perhaps hidden treasures left behind by the relative who had once owned it. He wondered if the mine might even hold secrets that no human had ever seen before. The sun was bright and warm, but as he drove further, the landscape began to change. The vegetation thinned, the air grew drier, and the horizon seemed endless. At last, he reached the location marked in the letter. The mine was set against a range of jagged hills, and its entrance was a dark opening in the rock. Rusted rails led into the tunnel, and the wind blew through the desert, carrying small clouds of sand across the empty landscape. Rohan parked his vehicle and approached cautiously. The mine appeared abandoned, and yet there was something strange about the place. It did not feel empty. There was a quiet hum in the air, faint but noticeable. Rohan stepped inside. The air was cooler here, carrying the smell of earth, minerals, and something else he could not identify. He switched on his flashlight, and the beam cut through the darkness, reflecting off the walls. The walls were rough but had unusual markings etched into them. At first they seemed like cracks or natural formations, but as he looked closer, he realized they were symbols. The symbols glowed faintly in shades of blue and green, as if the mine itself were alive. His footsteps echoed as he walked deeper into the tunnel. The sound of the wind from outside faded, replaced by a soft dripping of water somewhere far ahead. Rohan paused often to examine the glowing markings. They seemed to form patterns, perhaps telling a story, though he could not read it. He felt a strange connection to these symbols, as if they were meant for him. A shiver ran down his spine, and a mix of excitement and caution filled him. Hours passed as he explored the winding tunnels. The mine was larger than he had imagined. Some passages opened into wide caverns where the ceiling was so high he could not see it even with his flashlight. Crystals of different shapes and colors jutted from the walls and floor, reflecting the light in small bursts. He felt like he had entered another world, a place untouched by time. Then Rohan heard it for the first time. It was a soft, rhythmic sound, faint and almost melodic. At first he thought it was the wind or water, but as he listened more closely he realized it was different. It sounded like breathing, gentle and steady. He froze, holding his flashlight tightly, and his heart began to race. Following the sound, Rohan moved carefully through the tunnels. His flashlight illuminated the glowing crystals, and the symbols on the walls seemed to grow brighter as he approached. The sound became clearer, and he felt a pull in his chest, a silent urging to continue forward. Finally, he entered a large cavern unlike anything he had ever imagined. The cavern walls glimmered with minerals and crystals, creating a kaleidoscope of colors in the flashlight's beam. But it was not the crystals that captured Rohan's attention. At the center of the cavern, illuminated by a soft natural glow, was a figure. It was humanoid in shape but clearly alien. Its skin shimmered like polished silver, and it had eyes that glowed softly with blue and green light. The creature was chained to a pedestal of glowing rock, but it did not struggle or seem angry. Instead, it seemed calm, sad, and lonely. Rohan took a cautious step closer. The creature turned its head toward him, and for a moment it felt as if time itself had stopped. He felt a strange warmth, a silent connection, as if the mind and the being had been waiting for him for centuries. The chains around the creature were not ordinary. They did not look like metal, but like living strands of energy, pulsing faintly as if aware of Rohan's presence. Rohan realized that freeing this being would not be simple. The mind was not just a place of rocks and crystals. It was a living puzzle, a test, and the creature was the key to understanding it. Despite the unknown dangers, he felt a strong determination. He could not leave this place without discovering its secrets. As night fell, Rohan decided to camp inside the cavern. He lit a small lamp, ate some food, and wrote in his notebook. His mind was filled with questions. Who was this creature? Why had it been chained here? What wonders did the mind hold? Despite the mysteries, Rohan felt no fear. The feeling of anticipation and purpose filled him. He realized that this mind had chosen him, and he had accepted its invitation. Through the night, he could hear the faint hum of the crystals and the gentle breathing of the chained being. Sleep came slowly, but he dreamed of glowing tunnels, alien symbols, and the bond that was forming between him and the creature. For the first time in his ordinary life, Rohan felt he had entered something truly extraordinary. The next morning, Rohan woke with renewed energy. He knew that his journey had only just begun. The mind had secrets waiting for him, and the alien being in the center of the cavern was the first of many discoveries. He took a deep breath, stepped closer to the chains, and gently touched one of the glowing symbols. The chain pulsed but did not harm him, as if acknowledging his presence. Rohan understood that patience and care would be necessary. This was not a race or a challenge to conquer. It was a connection, a partnership with the mind and the being it had held for centuries. With steady hands, a curious mind, and an open heart, Rohan prepared to uncover the mysteries hidden in the depths of the desert. The adventure of a lifetime had begun, and he would face it with courage and determination. The next morning, Rohan woke early. The cavern was bathed in a faint, natural glow from the crystals around him. The air was cool, and the soft hum of energy from the mine filled the space. He packed his small bag, made a simple breakfast, and stepped closer to the chained being. The creature watched him silently, its glowing eyes calm and curious. Rohan felt a strong sense of responsibility. He knew that this being had been alone for centuries, and it depended on him in ways he could not yet understand. Rohan spent hours observing the creature. He noticed small details about it that made him more intrigued. Its skin shimmered like liquid silver, reflecting the light of the crystals. Its movements were smooth and precise, almost as if it had learned patience over a very long time. The creature had no voice, but its gestures and the tilt of its head communicated more than words could. Rohan realized that understanding it would require careful attention and thought. As he moved around the cavern, he discovered more symbols etched into the walls. They were similar to those he had seen on the tunnels leading to this place, but here, they formed larger patterns. Some looked like maps, others like sequences of shapes that seemed to flow together. When he touched one of the symbols, the chains around the creature pulsed softly. It was as if the mind was trying to teach him something, showing that the symbols were connected to the chains, and the being Rohan spent the first day slowly walking along the walls, touching symbols and observing the reactions. He realized that patience was important. When he touched a symbol with care, the chains relaxed slightly and the creature moved a little closer. If he was hasty or rough, the chains pulsed and the being recoiled. It became clear that the mind was testing his intentions and his ability to respect the life it had held for so long. By evening, Rohan had learned a few basic patterns. He could make small changes in the chain's position, enough that the creature could stretch or move its hands slightly. The being, which he decided to call Sela, seemed to sense his progress. Its eyes glowed brighter and it moved with a little more freedom than before. Rohan felt a thrill of excitement. He realized that he was not just an observer in the mine. He was a participant, learning a language older than humans and building a connection with a being from another world. That night, Rohan camped near Sela's pedestal. He ate a simple meal and wrote detailed notes about the symbols, the chains, and Sela's reactions. He thought about the life Sela must have led, trapped in silence for centuries. He felt compassion. a strong desire to help Selah experience freedom. He realized that this was not only an adventure for himself, but a chance to change another life in a meaningful way. The following day, Rohan explored another tunnel branching from the cavern. This tunnel was narrower, and the walls were covered with smaller, more intricate symbols. Some looked like instructions, others like diagrams of strange machines or devices. The crystals here were smaller but sharper, forming jagged shapes that glimmered in the light. As he walked, Rohan noticed that the crystals hummed softly when he passed by, as if recognizing his presence. At the end of the tunnel, he found a small chamber. The walls were lined with smooth reflective surfaces that seemed to absorb light and then return it in gentle pulses. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal with a glowing crystal. When Rohan approached it, the crystal reacted to his touch. It pulsed warmly and sent a faint vibration through the floor. He realized this crystal might be important for understanding the mind and helping Selah. He carefully noted its position and shape. Knowing he would return with more knowledge of the symbols, Rohan returned to Selah, carrying the crystal with him. When he placed it near her pedestal, the chains pulsed and shimmered but did not harm him. Selah moved her hand slightly, reaching toward the crystal. Rohan felt a thrill of connection. For the first time, it seemed that Selah recognized him not only as a visitor, but as someone who could help. The moment was quiet but filled with meaning. The mind, the being, and he were now connected in a shared purpose. Days passed, and Rohan's bond with Selah grew stronger. He learned to read more of the symbols and understand their effects on the chains. Each day he touched the symbols with care, and each day Selah moved with more freedom. The patterns were complex, and sometimes he made mistakes. When that happened, the chains pulsed and Selah recoiled slightly. Rohan learned quickly that patience, respect, and attention to detail were more important than speed. He began to feel that this was a test not of strength or courage, but of character. During one exploration, Rohan discovered a hidden chamber. The entrance was concealed behind a cluster of crystals, but the symbols on the walls guided him to it. Inside, he found a large circular platform covered with more intricate symbols. The platform glowed faintly and seemed to respond when he stepped on it. Rohan realized that the mind itself was alive, responding to his presence, testing him, and guiding him toward understanding. As he studied the platform, Selah moved closer. She placed her hand near his, and he felt a warm pulse of energy. Though she could not speak, the gesture communicated trust and encouragement. Rohan realized that Selah was teaching him as much as he was teaching her. Their bond was growing stronger, and he felt that the mind's mysteries were not just puzzles but lessons meant for both of them. One evening, Rohan observed Selah in a new way. He noticed that her movements were graceful, almost like a dance, and her eyes held a depth of intelligence and emotion that was extraordinary. He realized that this being had experienced centuries of solitude, yet she was still patient, still hopeful. He felt a sense of awe and respect. It became clear that helping Selah was not just about freeing her chains, but about honoring her existence and the wisdom she carried. Rohan's determination strengthened each day. He realized that the mind was a place of wonder, not danger. Its challenges were designed to teach, not to punish. He understood that he was part of something far greater than himself, a story that had begun long before humans had walked the earth. Selah's presence, the glowing symbols, and the living crystals were all parts of a legacy that he was meant to continue. By the end of the second week, Rohan had made significant progress. He could loosen the chains slightly, and Selah could move her hands and head freely. Their silent communication had grown. Selah would tilt her head when he made a correct move with the symbols, and sometimes she would reach toward him, offering guidance in her gestures. Rohan felt a sense of companionship that he had never known before. It was a friendship beyond words, beyond species, and beyond time. Rohan realized that he was learning patience, observation, and empathy through this bond. Every day brought new lessons and small victories. The mind was no longer just a place of mystery. It was a school, a home, and a bridge to something extraordinary. He felt that freeing Selah completely was not just a goal but a journey, a test of how much he could learn and how much trust he could earn. Each night, as he rested near Selah, he felt a quiet joy. He knew that the road ahead would be long and full of challenges, but he no longer felt alone. The mind had chosen him. Selah had trusted him, and together they were beginning a story that would change both their lives forever. Days turned into weeks, and Rohan and Sela's connection grew stronger. Each morning, Rohan would wake with a sense of purpose and step into the glowing cavern where Sela waited. The chains had loosened slightly, enough for her to stretch and move more comfortably, but she was still not free. Every movement was a lesson in patience and understanding. Rohan realized that the mind had not only placed him in this role, but was teaching him how to act with care, intelligence, and respect for life beyond his world. Rohan spent hours studying the glowing symbols on the walls. He discovered that they formed patterns, almost like a language, and that each sequence affected Sela's chains differently. Some patterns caused a slight relaxation, while others produced a gentle pulse of energy that seemed to reassure her. Rohan experimented carefully, always observing Sela's reactions. He learned that rushing or pressing the symbols randomly caused the chains to tighten, and that thoughtfulness was rewarded with freedom, even if small Sela seemed to understand his intentions. She watched him as he moved from symbol to symbol, tilting her head and following his gestures. At times, she extended a hand, gently touching a symbol herself. Rohan noticed that when she did this, the chains pulsed softly and loosened more than usual. It was clear that the mind had designed a system of cooperation between the human and the being. Neither could fully succeed without the other, and this bond was central to the mind's mystery. Over the following days, Rohan experimented with communication beyond the symbols. He would speak softly, describing what he was doing, or hum simple melodies. Sela responded to tone and gesture, moving her hands or tilting her head in acknowledgement. Though she could not speak, Rohan felt that her understanding grew with each interaction. They began a silent dialogue, learning patience, trust, and mutual respect in a world far removed from ordinary life. One morning, Rohan discovered a new pattern of symbols on a wall he had not noticed before. They were smaller, more intricate, and seemed to flow like a stream across the rock. He traced them carefully, moving his hands slowly and deliberately. The chains around Sela shimmered and pulsed, and she leaned forward slightly. When he completed the sequence, the chains loosened enough for her to stand fully on the pedestal for the first time. Her glowing eyes met his, and in that moment, a sense of accomplishment and shared triumph filled the cavern. Rohan realized that every success, no matter how small, strengthened the bond between them. He began to anticipate Sela's reactions and learned to adjust his actions accordingly. Sometimes when he made a mistake, she would recoil slightly or move back, reminding him to be patient. Other times she would reach toward him, guiding his hand or indicating the correct symbol. It was clear that the mind had created not only a test but a partnership, and he felt honored to be part of it. As the weeks passed, Rohan explored more areas of the cavern with Sela following closely. He discovered new chambers, each with unique symbols, crystals, and energy patterns. In one chamber, the walls were covered with delicate crystal formations that hummed in response to touch. When Rohan placed his hand on them, the crystals vibrated and a soft light illuminated Sela's face. She moved her hands over the crystals, interacting with them in a way that suggested understanding far beyond human experience. Rohan watched in awe, realizing that she had knowledge and wisdom that had been accumulated over centuries. The bond between Rohan and Sela grew beyond instruction and observation. They began to anticipate each other's thoughts and movements. Rohan could sense her emotions through subtle gestures, and Sela responded instinctively to his actions. It was as if the mind had created a system of harmony, where understanding, trust, and cooperation were the keys to freedom. Rohan felt a deep sense of purpose. He understood that this bond was not only about freeing Sela, but about learning patience, empathy, and the true meaning of companionship. One evening, Rohan noticed a pattern in Sela's behavior that he had not seen before. When he touched the glowing symbols on a specific part of the cavern wall, she would extend her hand toward a cluster of crystals. The crystals pulsed in response, and the chains around her shimmered and loosened further. Rohan realized that the mind was teaching him a new lesson, that cooperation with Sela was essential for progress. He carefully followed the sequence, guiding her hand when necessary, and felt a surge of satisfaction as the chains gave way slightly. As days became weeks, Rohan also observed changes in himself. He had grown more patient, thoughtful, and attentive. He noticed small details that he would have overlooked before and became aware of the effects of his actions on others. The mind had not only created a being to be freed, but also a teacher for him. Sela, through her presence, had helped him grow in ways he had never imagined. Their bond was mutual, A shared journey of discovery, learning, and understanding. Rohan also began to understand the mind itself. He realized that it was alive in a sense, responding to his actions and Sela's movements. The crystals hummed in patterns. The symbols glowed with purpose and the chains pulsed as if they had awareness. Everything in the mind was connected, and the liberation of Sela was central to unlocking its secrets. Rohan felt a sense of awe and humility. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that he was ready because of the lessons he had learned so far. One day, Rohan discovered a hidden passage behind a cluster of crystals. He followed it and found a small chamber filled with glowing symbols and a smooth pedestal. The patterns on the walls were intricate, like a map or a sequence waiting to be solved. When he returned to Sela and guided her toward this chamber, she seemed to understand immediately. She placed her hands on the symbols, moving carefully and deliberately. The chains pulsed and shimmered as if approving her actions, and Rohan realized that they had reached a new level of understanding and cooperation. The mind, Sela, and Rohan were now a unified system. Each action had purpose, each gesture had meaning, and each day brought progress. The chains had become less of a barrier and more of a guide, teaching them both patience, care, and coordination. Rohan felt a deep sense of accomplishment, but he also knew that the journey was far from over. The ultimate freedom for Sela was still ahead, and with it would come discoveries beyond his imagination. At night, Rohan camped near Sela's pedestal, reflecting on the bond they had formed. He realized that freedom was not simply the removal of chains, but the building of trust, understanding, and respect. The mind had provided him with a challenge, but it had also given him a companion who was wise, patient, and extraordinary. Rohan knew that the next steps would require even more care, skill, and insight, but he felt confident that together, they could overcome any obstacle as he drifted to sleep. He thought about the life Sela had lived, trapped alone for centuries, and the trust she now placed in him. He promised himself to protect her, to learn from her, and to uncover the full mysteries of the mind. Their bond was now unbreakable, and Rohan felt a deep sense of purpose and connection. He knew that the adventure had only just begun, and that the mind held wonders beyond imagination waiting to be discovered. Rohan woke early, filled with determination and curiosity. Over the past weeks, he had built a strong bond with Sela, and learned much about the mind's symbols, crystals, and energy. Each day their connection deepened, and every small success brought new hope. Today felt different. He sensed that they were close to discovering something extraordinary. The cavern seemed to hum with anticipation. Rohan moved carefully along the glowing symbols, touching them with precision and patience. Sela followed, moving gracefully beside him. She extended her hands toward the symbols at times, and when she did, the chains around her shimmered and loosened even more. It was clear that they were nearing a breakthrough. The mind itself seemed to respond to their efforts, the crystals glowing brighter and pulsing with gentle energy. As Rohan examined the walls, he noticed a pattern he had not seen before. It was larger and more complex than any other, stretching across the cavern ceiling and down the walls. The symbols seemed to form a sequence, a combination of gestures and movements that required both him and Sela to work together. He realized that this was the final challenge, the key to freeing her completely. Excitement and determination filled him. They had come so far, and now the moment of revelation had arrived. Rohan carefully traced the first symbols with his hand, while guiding Sela's movements. Each correct gesture caused the chains to pulse softly and shimmer with a brighter glow. When a movement was incorrect, the chains tightened briefly, and Sela responded with a subtle shake of her head, guiding him toward the right sequence. It was a silent communication, a dance of trust and cooperation. Rohan marveled at her intelligence and patience. Together, they were solving a puzzle older than any human civilization. Hours passed as they moved through the complex sequence. The crystals reflected their progress, flashing with colors that changed as the symbols were activated correctly. Rohan noticed that the mind seemed to breathe, almost alive with energy. The air was filled with a warm hum, and he felt an extraordinary connection to everything around him. This was not just a place of minerals or technology. It was a living system designed to guide them toward understanding and freedom. Finally, after hours of careful cooperation, Rohan reached the last symbol in the sequence. He traced it slowly, and Sela extended her hand to meet his. The chains pulsed one last time, and then they dissolved entirely into the glowing air. Sela's body shimmered as she stretched fully, free for the first time in centuries. Her eyes glowed with a vibrant intensity, and she turned toward Rohan. In that moment, words were unnecessary. Gratitude, relief, and joy radiated from her being, and Rohan felt the same emotions deeply within himself. Selah stepped down from the pedestal and moved gracefully around the cavern. She touched the crystals and symbols, and the entire chamber responded. The glow intensified, and energy flowed through the cavern as if celebrating her freedom. Rohan watched in awe. He realized that freeing Selah had not only released her chains, but had also unlocked the true potential of the mine. Every crystal, every symbol, and every pattern now radiated energy and harmony, waiting to be explored and understood. Selah approached a large central pedestal in the cavern. Embedded in it was a crystal of unusual size and brilliance. When she touched it, the crystal pulsed and emitted a soft sound that seemed like music. Rohan noticed that symbols appeared on the walls around the pedestal, forming shapes and diagrams he had not seen before. These symbols seemed to tell a story, a history of the civilization that had built the mine and of the being who had been held within it. Selah's presence had activated a long-hidden record of knowledge. Rohan moved closer, studying the symbols carefully. He realized that they contained information about energy systems, communication methods, and technology far beyond human understanding. The mine had been a repository of knowledge, preserved for a being like Selah and for humans who could prove themselves worthy. Rohan felt both awe and responsibility. The knowledge they were uncovering could change humanity's understanding of science, technology, and the universe itself. Over the next few days, Rohan and Selah explored the newly revealed sections of the cavern. Selah guided him, showing him how to interact with the crystals and symbols to unlock information safely. They discovered devices that stored energy, recorded data, and emitted signals that could travel across great distances. Rohan realized that the mine was not only a source of wonder, but also a bridge between human civilization and a lost alien technology. Selah's knowledge and intuition made every discovery possible, and together they learned more each day. Selah also demonstrated remarkable intelligence and adaptability. She interacted with the devices in ways Rohan could not have predicted, touching symbols, pressing sequences, and directing energy flows. He watched carefully, taking notes and learning from her actions. It became clear that she had been trained for a purpose, and although she had been confined for centuries, her abilities were intact. Rohan felt honored to work alongside her and grateful for the trust she had placed in him. One evening, Rohan discovered a hidden compartment beneath the central pedestal. It contained a small glowing crystal that radiated warmth and energy. When he brought it to Selah, she reacted immediately, touching it and allowing the energy to flow through her. The crystal activated a new series of symbols on the walls, revealing a star map and locations of distant worlds. Rohan's mind raced. This was not just a mine. It was a record of exploration, a guide to civilizations and technologies far beyond Earth. Selah had been waiting for someone to discover it, and he had been chosen. The realization filled Rohan with both excitement and determination. He understood that the knowledge contained in the mine, combined with Selah's abilities, could advance humanity in ways he had never imagined. But he also recognized the responsibility. The mine had been entrusted to protect this knowledge and to choose the right person to interact with it. Rohan felt honored that he had been selected and vowed to use what he learned wisely. With Selah free and the mine's secrets unfolding, Rohan felt a sense of purpose stronger than anything he had known. He realized that their journey was just beginning. Together, they would explore the remaining chambers, unlock hidden technology, and learn from the wisdom preserved for centuries. Every step forward was a lesson, every discovery a gift, and every moment shared with Selah strengthened their bond. The days that followed were filled with exploration and learning. Rohan and Selah worked together to understand the devices, the symbols, and the energy flows. They mapped the cavern, studied the alien technology, and practiced careful cooperation with every step. Rohan found himself growing more skilled, more observant, and more patient. Selah, in turn, adapted to human ways, learning from him as he learned from her. It was a partnership of mutual respect and shared discovery. Rohan reflected on how far they had come. Selah had been trapped for centuries, and now she moved freely, sharing knowledge and exploring the mine. The cavern, once silent and mysterious, was alive with energy and purpose. Rohan felt proud and grateful. He knew that humanity had encountered something extraordinary, and he was a part of it. The bond between him and Selah was strong, and together they were unlocking wonders that would have been impossible alone. As night fell, Rohan camped in the central chamber. He watched Selah interact with the crystals and symbols, marveling at her intelligence and grace. He felt a deep sense of connection, not just with Selah but with the mine itself. The energy, the knowledge, and the partnership were all intertwined. He realized that this was more than an adventure. It was a new beginning, a path to understanding the universe and a lesson in trust, patience, and cooperation. Rohan knew that the next steps would be even more incredible. The mine held more secrets, more chambers, and more technology than they had uncovered so far. With Selah's guidance and their growing bond, he felt ready to explore further. The revelation of her freedom had unlocked not only the mine's potential, but also the possibility of a future where humans could learn, grow, and reach beyond their world. Together they were preparing to take the first steps toward that extraordinary journey. Rohan awoke to the soft glow of the cavern crystals reflecting across the walls. Selah was already moving gracefully among the symbols and devices they had unlocked in the previous days. She paused, turned her glowing eyes toward him, and offered a gesture that Rohan understood as encouragement. Their bond had grown beyond words. Trust, understanding, and cooperation had become second nature, and he knew that the journey they had begun together was far from over. The mine was alive in a way Rohan could not have imagined. Every crystal pulsed with energy, every symbol responded to his touch, and every device seemed ready to reveal secrets they had not yet discovered. Rohan felt a sense of excitement and responsibility. He realized that he was no longer just a visitor. He was a guardian, a student, and a partner in exploring a legacy far older and wiser than humanity had ever known. Rohan and Selah worked together daily, learning from the mine and from each other. Selah's intuition and knowledge guided him through intricate sequences of symbols and energy flows. Rohan's human ingenuity allowed them to solve puzzles that required logic, observation, and creativity. Each new discovery brought a mixture of awe and wonder. They uncovered energy storage devices that could hold more power than any human technology, communication crystals capable of transmitting signals across unimaginable distances, and maps that showed stars and planets that humans had not yet reached one day. Rohan noticed a small pedestal in a chamber they had explored before but never examined closely. On it rested a crystal that radiated a soft golden light. When he approached, Selah moved beside him, her hands hovering over the crystal in anticipation. As Rohan touched it, the crystal pulsed warmly, and the walls around them lit up with a series of symbols forming a pattern. It was a guide, showing how to use the energy systems they had discovered to create tools that could benefit humanity without causing harm. Rohan realized that the mine was not only a place of discovery, but also a lesson in responsibility. The knowledge it contained could change the world, but only if used wisely. He looked at Selah, understanding that together they were the first humans and aliens to bridge two forms of intelligence, learning from each other and preparing for a future where cooperation was more important than dominance. Days turned into weeks as Rohan and Selah tested the mine's technology carefully. They created small energy devices powered by the crystals, which could illuminate entire rooms without fuel. They explored methods of communication that could send signals across planets. They recorded their discoveries, knowing that one day humanity might be ready to learn from this knowledge. Selah guided Rohan patiently, showing him how to interact with the alien system safely and respectfully. He learned to move with care, to think beyond immediate results, and to understand the long-term effects of their actions. The bond between them continued to deepen. Selah began to imitate Rohan's gestures at times, following his example, and Rohan learned to interpret her subtle movements and reactions. Together they achieved a harmony that allowed them to accomplish tasks neither could do alone. It was clear that their cooperation had been the key to unlocking the mine's greatest secrets. The energy flowed freely, the symbols responded perfectly, and the devices operated as intended. Rohan also began to think about the future. The mine was remote, hidden in the desert, and its secrets could not be revealed to the world immediately. He knew that humanity might not understand or might misuse the technology if it were revealed too soon. But he also realized that sharing knowledge carefully and responsibly could transform life for everyone. He and Selah began planning ways to introduce these discoveries gradually, teaching lessons of cooperation, respect, and careful exploration alongside the use of technology one afternoon. While exploring a chamber deep within the mine, Rohan discovered a map of stars with locations marked by glowing symbols. Sela touched several of the symbols and a soft energy field appeared, highlighting planets and civilizations that humans had never seen. Rohan realized that the mine held knowledge about interstellar travel and communication. The implications were staggering. Humanity had been given a chance to reach beyond its world, but it would require patience, intelligence, and collaboration to do so responsibly. Rohan felt a sense of fulfillment. The adventure had begun with curiosity and uncertainty, but it had led to purpose, discovery, and a bond beyond species and worlds. He understood that Sela's freedom was only the beginning. Together they could explore the universe in ways that humans had only imagined. The mine had been waiting for someone capable of understanding its lessons, and it had chosen wisely. Over time, Rohan built a small, organized area within the cavern where they could study the mine's technology efficiently. Crystals were arranged carefully, devices were cataloged, and symbols were mapped systematically. Sela moved among these tools with precision, guiding Rohan and interacting with the technology in ways that seemed almost magical. The cavern had transformed from a mysterious, quiet space into a center of learning, discovery, and shared growth. Rohan also began to notice changes in himself. He had grown more patient, observant, and thoughtful than he had ever been. He had learned to listen to the subtle signals of the mine, to anticipate Sela's reactions, and to work cooperatively toward shared goals. The experience had transformed him, and he realized that this growth was just as important as the discoveries themselves. The bond between human and alien, between teacher and student, was teaching him lessons that no book or school could provide. The mine, Sela, and Rohan had become a unified system of discovery. Energy flowed freely through crystals and devices. Symbols communicated knowledge directly to them, and every day revealed new wonders. They explored every chamber systematically, uncovering hidden tools, advanced energy sources, and alien records of civilizations long forgotten. Each discovery confirmed that humanity's potential was limitless when paired with intelligence, patience, and cooperation. One morning, Rohan and Sela stood at the highest point of the cavern, overlooking the central chamber filled with glowing crystals and symbols. Rohan felt a profound sense of accomplishment. They had unlocked the mine's secrets, freed Sela, and begun to understand technology that could benefit not only themselves, but all of humanity. He looked at Sela and realized that their journey was not just about discovery, but also about the bond they had built, a partnership that transcended worlds. Rohan knew that the future would require careful steps. Humanity might not be ready immediately, but with Sela's guidance and their growing understanding, they could gradually introduce the knowledge. They could teach lessons of responsibility, cooperation, and respect while sharing the extraordinary technology of the mine. Rohan felt proud to be part of this journey, and he understood that it was the start of something far greater than he had ever imagined. As night fell, the cavern glowed softly, and Rohan and Sela prepared for rest. The energy from the crystals bathed them in light, a reminder of the lessons learned and the journey ahead. Rohan reflected on the adventure, from the moment he inherited the mine to the discovery of Sela and the unlocking of the cavern's secrets. He realized that life had changed forever. The ordinary world he had once known seemed small compared to the wonders now within reach. Rohan and Sela had transformed the mine into a place of knowledge, cooperation, and growth. The energy of the crystals, the power of the symbols, and the freedom of the being combined to create something extraordinary. Humanity had been given a chance to learn, explore, and expand its understanding of the universe responsibly. Rohan felt honored to be the one chosen to begin this journey, and to share it with Sela, whose trust and intelligence had made every step possible. The new beginning had arrived. The mine, once silent and mysterious, was alive with discovery and potential. Rohan and Sela stood together, ready to explore, learn, and share knowledge in a way that would shape the future. They had proven that humans and beings from other worlds could work together, achieve extraordinary things, and unlock the secrets of the universe through patience, respect, and cooperation. As they looked toward the entrance of the mine, Rohan felt hope and excitement. The desert beyond was vast, the world outside was waiting, and countless discoveries remained hidden. But he knew that with Sela by his side, nothing was impossible. Together they had begun a journey that would change both their lives and the course of human understanding. The adventure was only beginning, and the universe held endless possibilities for those willing to learn. Explore and act with care, Rohan smiled, feeling a deep connection to Sela, the mine, and the knowledge they had uncovered. He knew that the future was bright, filled with discovery, cooperation, and growth. Together, they would continue to explore the mysteries of the mine, the stars, and the universe itself. Humanity had been given a chance to reach beyond its limits, and the first step had been taken in the company of a being who had waited patiently for centuries. This was the new beginning, the start of a journey that would inspire generations to come.